This past week on social media, especially the local social media groups, there's been a story that's been passed around about this student, he was 7th grade, I believe now he's in 8th grade, student in Garden City. And if you read the story, and it's a mother who wrote it out of desperation because she has no clue what to do. There's no individual that I know whose heart would not be touched by it. But just to paraphrase just briefly, the mother and father have this wonderful 7th grade child who was joyful, who loved school, who loved sports, who loved life, and he went to junior high, and he was doing really well in the first quarter, first semester. He tried out for the soccer team because he loved soccer. He got on the soccer team, and everything seemed to be absolutely fine. But then the second semester came around, and the mother started to notice that the son was starting to become withdrawn a little bit, a little bit moody, a little bit depressed, and would stay in his room a lot. He would still go to soccer, but he pretty much dropped out of everything else that he liked to do. And the mother would ask him, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, nothing's wrong." She would ask him again and again, "Nothing's wrong." And then she would start getting calls from the teachers that this A student's grades are starting to plummet. And there had to have been some reason, but they just did not know because he refused to speak. They talked to the school counselor, the school psychologist, and nobody could figure out specifically what was happening until one day he came home and his face was all black and blue, and he made up the story that, oh, well, he just ran into something. But then the mother finally got him to admit the truth, and that was that students had been bullying him that whole year, and every day was getting worse and worse. And the day he came home from the school with the black and blue, it was one of the students, when he was at his locker, went and slammed him into the locker. The parents reported it to the administration, and absolutely, of course, sadly, they said they could find no evidence of bullying of the child, but he kept getting worse and worse and ended up in the hospital, suicidal, dropping away from absolutely everything, feeling completely unsafe, no longer wants to do anything, doesn't want to go to school, wakes up every day shaking with the thought about going to school. All because some children decided that he was weak and they were strong, and what do the strong do? They beat up on the weak. And there was no one there, or no one willing to stand up for him. My heart bleeds for him because that was my life as a kid. All the way from elementary through junior high. stopped mostly in high school, but my parents had to move to another town. And talk about feeling alone and feeling abandoned, but not one person would be willing to stand up. And I wonder where these children are getting these ideas that they can, in their own lives, in their own way, go ahead and be bullies to somebody else. And it's very simple, if you ask me. It's the parents, and it is society. Now, with parents, I think that's always been the case. Oh, my son, my daughter would never do something like that. They can't believe that innocent children, their innocent child, would be one who would be intentionally hurting somebody else. But the second thing, now more than ever, children are watching TV, are reading the news, are listening to the radio, listening to their podcasts, and all they see in the world around them is adults being bullies to other adults, simply because the fact that they might disagree with them on something. The whole concept of loving your neighbor as you love yourself has seemed to have been thrown out of our society's basic human values. Even though I was bullied growing up, I still would have the basic civility to say to my elders, yes ma'am or yes sir. This past week I was at a store, and this person was coming out, and she had 2 crutches, and she couldn't do it, and I ended up holding the door open for her. And as she was coming out, she said, "Oh my God, thank you. I'm in so much pain." And I said, "Oh, my prayers are with you." But she said, "Well, thanks for holding the door." I'm like, why wouldn't I? Or I was at the grocery store and waiting in line, and this person had 2 items. I was like, "Please, go right ahead." And they're like, "What?" I said, "Go ahead." "Well, why?" I said, "You have 2 items." I said, "Pay it forward next time, you know? Give it to somebody else." I mean, we have become a society. In fact, I like to say we have become a world that is all about me and has nothing to do with you. With perhaps the exception of if it's somebody in your family. And then you might hold them up a little bit, but then sometimes you might push them aside. And people have been asking the question over and over and over again, how can we as Americans, who pride ourselves of having some basic civility, which I know you and I were taught in school, about honor, about truth-telling, about respect. These things that I think we took for granted, which now have turned into a society of bullying, of name-calling, of harassment, and finding any way to separate us from one another instead of finding the ties, the bridges that bring us all together. For me as a Christian, I think the answer is simple. And that is that we need to live the lives that Christ taught us. We need to be Christ to other people. That means when our instinct is to strike, that we bite our tongue and we seek ways of reconciliation instead. It means getting out of our comfort zone. And if we see somebody being bullied, wherever it may be, and again, it's not just at school, it's at the workplace, it's with volunteers, and yes, it is in the church. The church is notorious for individuals bullying other individuals, and people refuse to do anything. Why? Oh, well, that's just how Mr. Smith has always been. When you would never allow that to happen in your own home. It means to be about loving others more than you love yourself. And love God more than anything else. And if we live this gospel, if we preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. Ken, one of your favorite quotes from St. Francis. But if we do that, if we stand up, if we become model examples to our children and to other people in the church, believe it or not, that will spread. Just like allowing a person to go in front of me that had 2 items. It took a minute. But it gave that person a minute's worth of worth. Who knows what was going on in her life that day? But it could have been the exact thing that she needed to turn her life around that day. We have an ad on Facebook that we sometimes put up about St. Jude, that St. Jude is a judgment-free zone. Get that from Planet Fitness. It's a little... I think it works better for us. That we're a judgment-free zone. That what that means is that it doesn't matter who walks through those doors. It doesn't matter who you're sitting around. That our job is not to be judging looks, judging attitudes, judging jobs, judging backgrounds. But it's to be about love and respect. I don't know how we're going in the world to get back to what so many hold dear about our country. But I know that at least if we try, and if we try again, and if we try again, then perhaps little by little by little, we will make a difference. Today I still pray. I'm praying so much for that mother and her father with their son. I just want to, whisk him away to safety. Although part of me wants to go into the school to those bullies and, well, I would like to, but I think I would end up in jail, and that's, and Newsday always has like a 3-day cycle, and so I don't know, that's all I'll pass on that, but, to be able to at least help them understand what they're doing. We don't have to be like them. We don't have to be like the people in our country and in our world right now. But what we do need to do is be the people of God that Jesus Christ calls us to be. To love God, to love others, and to love self. Amen.